Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I am Councilwoman Kathleen Murphy. And so thank you for coming out tonight. I know we're filming. Do you need a countdown? Are you good? Okay, great. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. And I apologize that I am going to probably be up here most of the time when I usually will help move the Q&A around. But I got a hip replacement 12 days ago, and this is only the second time I've left my house. So, so if y'all will forgive me on my mobility, my personal mobility issues tonight. I did want to acknowledge I've had some questions and emails come in about why we couldn't do some type of hybrid meeting of having people send in questions from online. But because we have more than one council member, more than one elected official here, under state law, under the Sunshine Law, we can't do hybrid meetings like that. We were able to do that during COVID, but under the Sunshine Law, that is prohibited. So I would like to acknowledge that we've got Councilman Tom Druffel here and Council Lady Angie Henderson is here. There she is. And I know that Representative Bob Freeman was going to try to come, and I know Councilman Freddie O'Connell is going to try to swing by as well. So, and if not, they're probably, going to be watching a little bit at home too. So tonight we're going to continue with our agenda as we normally do, where I'm welcomed you, and then I'll turn it over to the development team. They are going to provide their revised plans tonight, and then we'll do Q&A. And again, I usually like to walk around and help do that, but they will have somebody has a portable mic that is doing that and will be moving around. But I will do my usual kind of helping to moderate that. And then I want to go ahead and tell you on Saturday and Sunday, the 25th and the 26th, we're going to have a meeting at 3:00 each of those days. Still confirming the final details, but I've requested for stormwater to be able to be there and answer questions about the creek and floodplains and buffers and all of that kind of good stuff. And I'm hoping that NDOT, the Department of Transportation, formerly known as Public Works, that they will be able to be there as well. I'm really pushing them because we need to know that traffic information. And I appreciate that they are taking their time and being thorough, but it is hard to make a decision on things when we don't have all that information. So again, thank you all for coming here tonight, and I will turn it over to the development team, and then we'll be back up for Q&A. Anything I forgot? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. My name is Ryan Doyle. I lead development for AJ Capital here in Nashville. I've been here for almost 15 years. A number of our team members you've probably interacted with on your way in, a few of which may come up as well during the Q&A to answer any questions that you have with the team that you see here on the stage. We are honored to be working on this project with the community. It's an important property. The redevelopment of Belle Meade Plaza is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we believe we're the best stewards for the future of this vital location within this great neighborhood. We're headquartered here in Nashville, as I mentioned, and we're focused on building a portfolio of design-forward, sustainable, community-based developments, both across the country, but most importantly, here where we live. This is the third community meeting that this development team has presented. And I believe several of you in the room have joined both the traffic work session and the zoning presentation with NDOT and the planning staff respectively. And as Councilmember Murphy mentioned, we're looking forward to 2 more community meetings upcoming in the next few weeks on February 25th and 26th. One of the biggest concerns we've heard from the community is about traffic. And as we all know, there are many factors that contribute to the overall traffic impact within the neighborhood, and we will talk about both our project and the city's progress on future improvements. We've listened to the concerns from residents, planning, and the council member that the buildings were too tall for the neighborhood context. We've adjusted our buildings to reduce the size and have the heights at or below precedents in the area, while stepping down as the buildings get further from White Bridge Road. We've heard the community that the number of residential units was larger than they would like to see. As a result, we went back to the drawing board and have reduced the apartment and hotel program, in our opinion, materially. Many community members were concerned that our retail plan was reducing the neighborhood retail that they enjoy today. We have increased our proposed retail program and plan to have more than double the storefronts that are there today once our retail plan is completed. Lastly, we've heard your feedback about our ability to revitalize both Sugar Tree and Richland Creek. And we have met with various city agencies and advocacy groups to further our design intent, and we fully intend to do what's necessary to revitalize both those creeks and create a habitat that is enjoyable for all the community to experience. With that, I'm going to hand it off to William Hastings from our development team to walk us through both the existing zoning, our original plan, and the changes ahead.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. May I ask for, just so I understand the audience, a show of hands who attended the meeting at Montgomery Bell Academy a little while ago? Almost everybody, which is great. Thank you for your continued participation. We appreciate it a great deal. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the base zoning that exists on the site today. If you attended the planning workshop, that probably was a good opportunity for you to learn these things as well. But it's important because anytime we look at a site for anyone, any development, whether it's a single family home or it's a site like this that's 10.5 acres, what one can do on the land is very important. And so I'm going to go through that just very quickly. And then, as Ryan mentioned, I'm going to share with you some of the significant changes that we've made to the plan. And then Jim Plunkard, who was not able to attend the meeting at MBA, I mentioned him, if you recall, with HPA Architects in Chicago, is going to walk through some of the plans as well. And then after that, we're going to turn it over to Brian Phelps, who is our landscape architect with Hawkins Partners, and he's going to talk in greater detail about the plans along the creek and show you some renderings, kind of some before and afters and other things. Hopefully you'll see a lot of progress there. And then we'll end with Beth Ostrowski with KCI Transportation Consultants, and she's last because we think a lot of questions are going to start there. So we're going to have Beth on the podium. And we're glad this team is here and really appreciative of your time. So we know everyone's familiar with the site. This existing building on the site is 206,434 square feet, 434 square feet. The existing site coverage is 154,000 feet. The impervious site, which is basically parking, right? Primarily parking, service areas, loading docks, all that type of stuff, is 409,000 feet. And includes roofs and the current parking. This was asked in the last meeting. There was a lot of discussion around parking, having adequate parking for the retail. And the parking that exists today at the site is 664. Many people have asked about this as well. So I wanted to have a little bit of a just very simple graphic. The site today is zoned mixed use limited, MUL. And MUL is a zoning classification that exists in our city. And basically it tells a landowner the parameters in which they can build, right? It gives them an envelope, so to speak, right? It tells them how far they have to set the building off of different streets and other things. And then it tells them how high they can build it. And it tells them what the total square footage that can be built on the site. Those are and it also determines uses, what uses you could put there, right? If you live in a residential neighborhood, you know that you have, there are restrictions on what you can do in the house next door to you, for instance. So same thing here. Mixed use limited has uses that we can and can't do. So Today, the FAR on this site is 1.0, which is, it means you can build as many square feet of building as you have land. So you can see these diagrams. It could cover the whole site. Not really. It couldn't because of the floodplain and because of setbacks. But if you could build from property line to property line, it would be 1 story. You could cut it in half and the whole site, a 2-story building for half the site, a quarter of the site, 4 stories. And on and on and on, right? Just depending on the footprint of the building. Permitted uses today, land uses today, these are not all of the uses. We actually only listed ones that are not permitted with conditions. These are just ones that are permitted by right. And there are some on this list that, like short-term rental property, for instance, is something that part of this rezoning application we're and committing to no short-term rentals in the project at all. And unlike what would be there today in the zoning. And you can see other uses. Some of these are good services for the community and some would be less desirable. So this diagram, just to orient you, is an outline of the site. White Bridge Road is on your right, Harding Pike on the bottom, the CSX Railroad at the top. And when you work with zoning, it basically determines the envelope I mentioned, the height. You can ultimately, you have setbacks that apply to the site, and those setbacks are off the street, 10 feet, off the rear, 20 feet, the side, nothing. So what it means is you can build within this envelope. Kind of think of it like a force field. Now you can't build more than 460, whatever it was, 468,000 feet, but you can build that building of those uses anywhere in that envelope that would, meet the zoning regulations. And of course, what that does, it's 45 feet at the street, and then it steps back and kind of creates this pyramid, ultimately in the slenderest portion as tall as 345 feet. But a lot of the site is in this 120 and 195 foot range, and we're proposing building significantly shorter than that and reduced significantly. Also, things that zoning doesn't control for a site like this, unless you do an SP, which was what we're proposing, an SP plan, which is specific. It's a law if it's passed. You can't go back. Once you get SP, you can't go back and say, I wanted MUL after all because I want to go build something taller somewhere else. You can't do that. You have to start over, which is, I think, should be reassuring. What things that are not specified in MU, number of units, number of hotel keys, specific building materials, designs and forms, building locations, percentage of open space, trail network connectivity, all of those things that we're going to talk about it today, which we are extremely comfortable memorializing in our final SP so that what we show you is what can only be built. So SP, I've mentioned that a couple of times. And so what we're proposing is an SP. It's what we submitted in December based on the timeline you saw. And this is a lot of text. I'm sorry. You kind of have to, it's like an eye chart. You have to cover your right eye and read the bottom line. But basically the purpose of an SP is, I underlined the things that I thought were most important. Design elements are written into the zone change ordinance, which become law. Large sites, this is out of Metro's website, large sites being developed in a unified manner or sites that have significant areas of sensitive environmental features located near historical features require public infrastructure to support development. So on to the actual meat of what we're here to talk about today. So just a reminder, mixed use limited, 458,000 feet, 345 feet. I don't want that to be ambiguous. That's only in that little slender, but still slender portion of that diagram I showed you. But it's, and then limited specificity. And what we're proposing is a change in the plan. Ryan Doyle mentioned it a moment ago. Our SP that we filed in December was requesting an FAR of 2.0, which is 920,000 square feet. We're going to show you plans today that reduce the building heights. In all cases, the uses are the same. And the total maximum FAR that would be allowed on the site per the SP would be 775,280 to be exact. The maximum building height proposed will be 151 feet. which will show you diagrams that reflect that 151 feet. The previous proposal had a building as tall as 210. And then specification in the SP on building heights, locations, parking, open space, creeks and buffers, and the trail network. So this plan looks extremely similar to what you saw previously, other than the fact that we've developed the hardscape and landscape plan a little more thoroughly, and we've also given more thought to how the parking is going to work, the number of parking spaces, as well as the building heights and building density. We've labeled them A, B, C, D clockwise because that's going to be an important piece of information in just a moment. So here's your building A, B, C, D, right? So A being closest to Sugar Tree Creek at Harding Road, just to orient you. Building height in our previous submittal from November was 212 feet, and we've reduced that building height to 109 feet. It's a 9-story building. Building B is 150 feet, and we've reduced that building to 138 feet. Building C is 160 to 141. Building D was 170 to 149. So it's 2 floors off of C and D, 1 floor off of building B, and roughly 9 floors off of building A. Residential units in the SP was 500 residential units, a combination of multifamily and condo. We've reduced that to 388 units. Hotel keys in the SP was 120 hotel keys. We've reduced that to 78. Ryan Doyle mentioned the retail, that what we've heard from the community around having more neighborhood retail and having, better selection than we have today to shop. So we've increased that from 60,000 to 80,000. And parking spaces on the site, which we'll show you a diagram in a moment, 950, some on grade at the street level, and the vast majority below the building, out of sight, but convenient to all of you, hopefully, and convenient to vertical circulation to get you from your car to the retail space. And you can see the bottom square footage I mentioned a moment ago, the reduction from 917 to 775. So I'm going to walk you through the heights of those buildings real quickly, and then Jim is going to walk up. So the Ingram building on the far right is 151 feet. So that's the datum line. That's the maximum that we're proposing in the SP, that we would not exceed that height. The dash red line you see is that kind of force field, triangle that I showed you earlier, which is the envelope. What we had proposed in our previous meeting was those buildings, A on your left, B, C, and D at these heights. And what we're proposing in our final plan is the building on the left's 110, the next one 138. The buildings at the street are somewhere around 60 feet, 141 and 149. All less than that of the Ingram building next door. I'm going to turn it over to Jim Plunkard, and thank you again.
Just check this out. Oh, how do you hit this?
If you want to use the pointer. Yeah.
Got it?
It's kind of hard to see.
Okay. Thank you, William. Good evening. I'm gonna hopefully, I'm sorry. No one's ever accused me of being quiet. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry. Oh, there we go. How about now? Thank you. I'm going to walk you through the retail portion of this project. Can you hear me? Okay, great. I'm sorry. My name is James Plunkard. I'm one of the architects on the project, working with this esteemed team. I've been in and around Nashville for several years now, working and helping AJ on a number of projects. And this is another one, and I'm joining the Hastings team on this one. So it's a pleasure to be working with him. I know there have been a lot of questions about the retail, and hopefully I'll answer a few of them tonight. I want to start by saying that the retail portion of this project is literally the centerpiece of our master plan. It surrounds our town square that we've created. It steps out and fronts White Bridge and Harding Pike Road. It ties together all and connects all the green space we have, all the public open green space we have, and it leads everyone out to the new proposed creek bed, creek walk. It's specifically also designed, I think, and curated, and its intent is to be scaled so it's specifically for the people who live and work here. This slide right here is an aspirational slide. It's sort of what we are hoping to achieve on the interiors of our and exterior of our retail development. It's intimate, approachable. Every one of our spaces has outdoor space, whether it's at grade, they have the ability to have outdoor seating, lounge seating, or a terrace. Several of the buildings are freestanding. That's an important component here. So it allows us to create gabled ceilings, voluminous space, something that's a little more unique in a little urban retail mall. And also a lot of the retail buildings that I'll show you are smaller, and I think you're seeing a lot of natural daylight here, and that's important because that's what we'd like to see throughout our project as well. Arrow. There we go. So this is a little blow up of the plan, and I'm going to try to walk you through, kind of orient you here. I don't know if this is doing it. How do you do this? Is that it? Oh, there we go. Oh, God. Thank you. Okay. So one of the changes we made from community feedback is we increased the square footage of the retail from 65,000 square feet to 80,000 square feet. This is a blow up of the corner. This is White Bridge, Harding Pike. This is the curve out proud on that corner. And to give you, and this is the main entrance drive that we're going to have in. I don't know if you can sense that. That's the driveway that currently exists. We're eliminating this driveway here. The idea is that all of the pink spaces you see here are retail. So these 5 buildings sit out proud of the residential buildings, and they're 2 stories, and they're sized appropriately so that we can create a lot of small individual spaces, up to about 30 retail tenants, ranging from about 500 square feet, which would be a small neighborhood boutique, all the way to 5,000 square foot on some of the corners, which we expect to be restaurant space. The current drive that exists on the site now, we are going to expand and turn into a pedestrian boulevard, walkway, treed, catenary lit. That'll divide what we call our town square. All of the retail wraps around our town square. And then on the other side, on the north side of our main street, we have retail again, fronting that street to sort of complete the retail experience. We also have retail between the 2 buildings, I think in an effort to just continue to drive the public out, drive the neighborhood residents out to the creek bed and experience that. As you can see, we have a number of spaces aside from the town square, which is about a half an acre. We have a number of smaller little spaces and courtyards that can create all forms of interaction between the retail tenants and the public. Let me see. This is, I guess, just, it's a little bit of a blow up just to show you how this tabletop street that wraps around allows people to be dropped off and picked up, allows for valet parking, Uber drop off, but it also allows us to curate these buildings so that there is no back to them. They have facades that face either the town square or a little galleria or out towards the street. This also has a green buffer along Harding Pike and along White Bridge. And here you're seeing the exact corner of the space that where you could have outdoor seating. And I think the idea is that it invites you in. You can see the activity, you can see the sign, you can see the entry to each of the retail tenants. This is a view of, can I go backwards? So this area here, if you're standing here looking from the corner, this is the view of our two-story retail tenants. You can see the gable roof, which will allow us to drive that to be a very dramatic space. We have outdoor terraces up on top of the building for those tenants. We also have outdoor courtyard. It's been designed, and I think Hawkins will go through the plan with you and show you how we're trying to drive foot traffic here. If people want to cross, we have slow down lanes, slow down paths. It's well lit, and it's all landscape paving and trees along both streets. So that's a view from the corner. Here's a view if you're, let me go back just to show you this. The second view is from here. If you're entering this way, gives you an idea looking across the facade on Harding Pike. And the next view that I'll show you after that will be standing in this town center looking out across the town center. Here we go. Yes. Let me go backwards. Right here, is this one? So yes, this is yeah, that's right.
White Bridge, this perspective looking into the site display.
Yes. Do you want me to back up? Let me back up. We're going to show you 3 slides. The first slide will be from here.
From here, looking into the site.
The second slide will be from the other side over here.
Second rendering is from this corner at the site entry, looking into the retail area this way. Harding's right here. Harding,
I should.
White Bridge.
What's that?
Harding down here. White Bridge here. Creek at the top.
Just give it a minute.
Test. Harding is the south of the plan.
Here we go.
White Bridge is plan east here. The creek is at the very top.
Where the railroad tracks.
North of the creek.
Where's the surface part?
We will get there here shortly.
Okay, real quick, to orient everybody, the zoom in that Jim was talking about is.
The zoom in that Jim was talking about is cutting this image off. Okay, see where Harding Pike is here. White Bridge Road, railroad right there. When he zooms in, you're going to see a zoom in of this section only. That makes sense? So you won't see anything past here. So this is not part of the zoom in. So it's basically that exact image, just zoomed in with more detail.
So there's no retail in A and B?
That's correct. There's no retail in A and B.
How do I get back to that one? I just keep going down. There we go. Thank you for that. So I'm going to run through. I'm going to run through the perspective slides that we have again. So this is from the corner. If you are looking from the corner of White Bridge and Harding Pike, looking at the retail development, this gives you a snapshot of the two-story retail that'll be there, the open space, the trees, the streets, and the ability for all tenants to have outdoor space. You're seeing some second floor gabling that I mentioned. What you can see behind, if that helps orient you, is in the back is one of the resi buildings behind it in the back. That's 13 stories, 151 feet. So this is looking the other direction, and you can see the Ingram building across White Bridge in the background on the right to help orient you. That's 151 feet.
10 stories. 10.
It's 10 stories.
10.
Right. Okay. So this
If we could, sorry, y'all, just so we could get through the presentation, please hold the questions to the end. They can go back on the slides, but just so we don't get lost or confused in where we are on these, if you could just hold the questions to the end. We're here until 8.
Thank you. So this is another view looking at the facade facing Harding Pike. I'll kind of move along quickly so we can get to your questions. This is a slide, as I said, this is standing back against one of the resi buildings, looking across the town square. Again, you're going to see same two-story retail experience, a fountain, a dramatic fountain sitting out in the middle of that town square, and again, surrounded by retail 1- and 2-story buildings. And now, oh yeah. Is this the slide? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Got it. So now I'm going to talk about where we park to get in here. So as I mentioned before, and Jack can point, thank you, Jack, we have this sort of ring road that holds a few spaces, but the idea is not to have a parking lot at grade, to actually have as much public accessible open space as we can, and that's why we're at 60%. So the idea is that we have multiple areas immediately. This is a speed ramp to get down to the parking. There's a secondary access where you go straight if you want to bypass that to get down to the parking level. There's an additional space if you're coming from under White Bridge and you want to cut through everything and just get down there. There's a third space. Both of these are in and out. I'm sorry, and there's a fourth space up right off of Harding Pike. So the big thing here is in order to get a big walkable community with retail at grade on both the resi building and on the on these freestanding buildings, is to put all the parking to drive it down below grade. So if you'll take a quick look here, you can see the 5 freestanding outline of the 5 freestanding 2-story retail buildings. And what you see are the dotted line. This is our underground parking. And so you drive down the ramps and you park, right now you park in the lot and you walk about 300 feet into retail. Right now you can park right under the retail and take an elevator up or stair up 1 floor. This is covered, it's well lit, it's heated, it's and it's directly underneath the retail. So you'll take that up and you can access your retail immediately. Basically, everything to the right of that middle arrow is retail parking. We anticipate to the left being condominium parking, and then there's a second sub-basement of parking for the rental buildings. These are the areas where you would travel. Once you park, you hop into that lobby and take it up and walk right out of one of the retail buildings and go to the destination that you choose. And that's quick there, but thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Hawkins. Thank you, Brian.
So Brian Phelps with Hawkins Partners, senior partner. Oh, sorry, wrong one. It's just
It's this one.
the little, yeah, okay. My name's Brian Phelps with Hawkins Partners, senior partner.
They can't hear you.
Sure.
You're going to have to put your mouth to it.
Okay. I learned here. My name is Brian Phelps with Hawkins Partners, landscape architect and urban designer on the project. Here we wanted to show the context, and one of the exciting things about this project is extending upon the great Greenway infrastructure that you already have in the neighborhood. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be one of my very early projects is working on phase 1 and phase 2 of Richland Creek, and always was amazed of just how phenomenal the Richland Creek itself was as a natural resource, and always proud of the activity and the kind of the beloved trail system that it had created. And seeing this project adding to that was really, really exciting for us as a part of that. This project adds another approximately around 2,000 linear feet of greenway as a part of this. And so you can see in the bottom here that the blue represents where the site is. The orange dots that you see are pedestrian crossings, which are really critical infrastructure to get to the other side of White Bridge into the Greenway system that connects into this site. But ultimately, all of these connections provide an alternative means to get to the site. Whether you're coming from Sylvan Park or from other neighborhoods on the other side of White Bridge, or other side of Richland Creek. So just having an alternate means of getting to the site, and that this site really provides a really unique destination for that. So it make an even more enjoyable part of that experience. And so the next. But as I had no idea, I know I talked about this last time, that the Kroger and the parking garage sat over Richland Creek. And obviously we can't do that today. I still can't believe we allowed for that at the time. But just for those that aren't familiar with what's underneath there, I mean, there is this the natural resource that's running underneath that, both as where Sugar Creek and Richland Creek come together. But there's a really, I mean, just seeing the structures that are over top of this, and that this project is proposing to remove all of these structures over top of that. But at the last slide that you see there, I mean, Richland Creek is just such a beautiful experience, and to bringing that back is really an exciting part of this project. And so, as you see of the site plan that we've been talking about, again, White Bridge Road to the right of the screen, Harding Road to the bottom of the screen. At the top of the screen is where the railroad, and you can see where Richland Creek is. The yellow line represents the main part of the Greenway that is always open 24/7, 365. It is a part of this SP that it cannot be closed. So that is always to remain open. The pink areas are still a part of the Greenway, but they have the option of, like many park systems, where you can maybe hold an event occasionally within those areas. But it was really important that we always maintain the access through the site there, and having that as part of the Greenway. All of it was in a Greenway access easement. All of it is built by the developer. All of it is maintained by the developer, and it is a permanent access easement for the Greenway. So it will meet those standards, and it will. Currently, we're showing it as the standard Greenway of 14 feet wide. And because this is right now the end of the Greenway, we are proposing to create what we're calling Platform Park. That's in the top left-hand corner here. That is looking at whether there are some remnants of the Kroger structure that can be kept to create a park that can really be this destination part of the Greenway system, a place where there can be educational opportunities, places to observe the Greenway, and other just activities just to enjoy being outdoors. And so providing that really unique aspect to that whole experience. So as Jim said earlier, that all of the space, excluding the buildings and the vehicular ways, all of the, either it's a natural area or it's a pedestrian use space, is 50% of the site. And so we just wanted to show just some before and afters to kind of start giving, just the impact that this project can make. So this is an existing photo behind the retail. Right now, it's all for loading dumpsters. The parking garage is here, and the building is much closer to the creek than what the current proposal is showing. And seeing what that could be as an after, that this is where the Belvedere comes out and overlooks the creek, where you can have access and looking down at the creek. To the right that you see there is the railroad on the far right of the screen. And then to the left, you see that the retail behind where these people are sitting as that aspect. But it really provides a unique opportunity to sit and enjoy the experience of Richland Creek. Here's another one where the parking garage, this is the parking garage that is built over the creek, that being removed and basically rehabilitating, restoring the natural habitat along those creeks and providing, again, those open spaces and overlooks. And we'd like to have some opportunity. I think it's really exciting on the current Richland Creek Greenway that you can access the creek there. And these are just some other images of the Greenway that you saw in plan. And I know it's a little bit small up there in the left-hand corner. I should have said where those views are from, but essentially these are all, this is looking from White Bridge Road. Bridge is behind you. It has the overlook where the Belvedere that we started looking out, and then just ending with one of those, another one of those photos, just showing what that could be like. So I'll turn it over to Beth and talk about traffic.
Awesome. I think my slightly shorter height might help on the sound here. I'll get up on it. Don't worry. Hi, I'm Beth Ostrowski. I think most of you saw me speak a couple weeks ago. I'm the traffic engineer for this project with KCI Technologies. Before we jump into Belle Meade Plaza, I want to take a moment to talk about the meeting on January 21st and really say thank you for all the feedback that we received that day and through the online portal. We have been working, my team has been working very closely with NDOT to sort through and catalog the hundreds and hundreds of comments we received from y'all. I have some preliminary results of your feedback. There is more work to do, so this is very preliminary, but I want to let you know that how we'll be using that input. So, that's not the direction I wanted to go. There we go. So the most prevalent transportation-related comments we received were related to the items that you see here on the screen right now. Existing traffic congestion and how developments will impact that congestion. Cut-through traffic in assorted nearby neighborhoods, multiple neighborhoods, and lumping them together. Access to transit and access for emergency vehicles, particularly during peak times. In addition to these primary comments, we also noted a lot of support for improvements to signal timing and operations and investments in technology that would better manage the existing traffic conditions and congestion. So all of your comments are being taken into consideration as NDOT continues their review of the multi-use or the multi-development mobility study. Based on our initial review of the comments, additional analysis and study may be required. This may be something added to the mobility study that my team already did, or this may be part of a future regional planning level study that will reach to include a broader geographic area. We did hear some comments, quite a few comments related to areas outside of what we studied as far as Green Hills, for example. Additionally, some of your comments are likely to result in direct conditions placed on one of the multiple developments that was included in the mobility study.
So today I have some details for you regarding KCI, my team's recommendations for Belle Meade Plaza, this site specifically. But I want to be super, super clear that we don't yet have NDOT's review, and there are very, very likely to be adjustments and or additions once they complete that review and once we have processed all the feedback we received on January 30th or 21st. Reiterating what I shared, keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. Reiterating what I shared in the listening session, traffic impact studies follow a locally approved process using nationally recognized resources that provide guidelines for data collection, project assumptions, trip generation, and traffic analysis. And each study is scoped and reviewed by NDOT. KCI completed a traffic impact study for this site specifically prior to our completion of the mobility study. So I think that we've talked about the site plan plenty, but just pulling this up one more time to take a look. The changes that you see, furthest to the west, that access is at the same location it is today, but it will change to be a right in, right out. The signal where it is today will remain and will be full access. And then closest to White Bridge, that right in only is gone. Otherwise, access is the same. You'll still be able to go under White Bridge to get over to like where Publix is. You'll still be able to do that. That will remain. As mentioned earlier, the current Belle Meade Plaza site plan includes 101 condos, 278 apartments, 78 hotel rooms, and 80,000 square feet of retail space. This is a change from before. In compliance with NDOT and national standards, KCI used ITE, traffic trip generation, to determine the amount of traffic generated by the proposed site. I'm a neighbor, and so I'm on the assorted social media pages, and I've seen speculation that the proposed site will not generate less traffic. This is what I do every day, and I'm here to present the facts. And this site will, in fact, generate less trips in the future than what it does today. Let's go through that. Let's go through that a little bit. So this site is proposed to generate 7,628 daily trips, 329 of those in the morning rush hour, that's in 1 hour, and 613 in the afternoon PM rush hour. Compared to the existing use, I'm going to do the difference now, so the math's not on there for you, but this is a reduction of more than 6,600 daily trips, more than 70 morning AM peak hour trips, and more than 560 PM peak hour trips. This reduction is largely due to the fact that grocery stores and retail establishments generate more trips per square foot when compared to condos and apartments. So let me give you an example of that. And let's use Ninky as an example. Ninky, I'm going to estimate, is 4,000 square feet. So if Ninky is 4,000 square feet, and let's just say a condo in one of these condos is 2,000 square feet. 2 condos can fit inside one Ninky. Well, Ninky probably has hundreds of patrons a night that come in more than 100 cars. Ninky is very busy. My family loves it. Those 2 condos probably see less than 5 trips, definitely less than 10. You come home, you're coming home from work. Let's say you're going out to dinner. You come home from work, your partner comes home from work, you get ready, you go out to dinner, you come back from dinner. That's 4 total trips. And those trips probably aren't occurring in the same hour. But that's an example of when we're thinking about how the use of this density is occurring. The grocery store, all of the retail space, all of the spaces in the current plan are very dense, and they're attracting a lot of trips versus much of what's being proposed are spaces that have more square footage with less trips per square foot. I'm going to show you a couple images that try to illustrate this in a different way for you. So in the morning peak hour, this is what you're looking at is the assorted color cars. There's a key on the bottom. I'm hoping everybody can see that. The assorted color cars on the left represent the existing uses and how many trips there are. And then on the right are the proposed. So what we see here is exiting the site in the morning is actually the only time of day we'll see any increase in trips. And that makes sense because we have a lot more residential. So we have people leaving in the morning. However, when you look at the inbound in the morning, we have substantially less trips, not quite half, but definitely lower, from 252 coming in the site existing to 141 coming in the site in the future. The same applies here in the PM peak hour. It's quite a bit more dramatic. As you might imagine, the loss of the Kroger and the reduction from about 120,000 square feet of retail down to 80 really influences these numbers. The adjustment of the trip generation will shift some traffic patterns subtly, kind of as I described in the morning, and that's really typical with a change of use. But in general, when we look at this site by itself, not as part of the broader mobility study, but by itself, the traffic analysis results, including the delay and the queue, show results that the future is comparable or better to existing. And that is because the site is not generating any new trips. It is generating less trips, 40% less over the course of the day. Now, I recognize I'm not going to convince all of you that this is the case. Like I said, I've seen social media. So I just want to highlight that just because this project is not adding trips does not mean that we are proposing no improvements to the transportation network. In fact, I am certain that what I'm going to show you on the next few slides will not be the only mobility-related improvements ultimately conditioned on this project. And AJ Capital Partners is well aware of this, and they are prepared to make improvements to the transportation network despite having a measurable reduction in the trips generated, because they have heard, we've been listening to you, we've spent a whole 2 hours on the 21st getting all that feedback, and we've spent a lot of hours since cataloging them and trying to go through and make sure that we're really grasping what's going on. So let's jump to those recommendations. I absolutely recognize this is hard to read, so I apologize. But these recommendations, again, NDOT has not finalized, but my team's recommendations subject to adjustment include a host of multimodal transportation improvements around the immediate site vicinity, including improvements to sidewalks, crosswalks, better access management, as I described previously, and improved transit stops, in addition to the Greenway improvements along Richland Creek that Brian described. I'm skimming over these because they're not final with NDOT. We will go into more detail in the future. But I want to highlight one improvement that will have a measurable impact for those of you that drive through this intersection on a daily basis. That's me too, by the way. We recommend adjustments and phasing changes to the signal at Harding and Whitebridge Woodmont to remove what's called split phase operations. Split phase is when the side streets of an intersection do not go at the same time. One side street goes and then the other side street goes. So Woodmont goes and then the whole intersection shuts down and then Whitebridge goes. We looked at a whole bunch of options to make changes to this intersection, knowing that we couldn't, on 3 of the 4 corners, we had no ability to impact the existing right-of-way and make changes there. This was the only option that actually moved the needle and made an improvement. So what is going to happen in the future is that instead of Woodmont going, everything shutting down, and then Whitebridge going, you will see more of a typical intersection where the lefts go at the same time. And then as the left in the opposing direction doesn't need that turn anymore, then the throughs go. And the throughs will go concurrently on Whitebridge and Woodmont. The improvement for you as daily drivers in the PM peak hour, on average, drivers will see a 50-second improvement. 50 seconds may not sound like a lot. I hope it does, because 50-second improvements when we aren't widening the road is pretty substantial, and we're pretty dang excited about it. Individual movements may see more than that or less than that, but as an average for every single car driving through that intersection in the afternoon, 50-second improvement. I am sure there are questions for me. I tried to keep it short. please, I just want to say again, we are still waiting to hear from NDOT, but I'm glad to answer anything I can. And I think I'm handing it to William. Am I?
Emma? Sure.
Is that, am I handing it to Kathleen?
Yes. All right, so we have covered a whole lot of information, and I think we've got this monitor's in the way, but where did she go? Okay, I just can't see you. Probably what is best is if we go up one aisle, down one aisle, and kind of zigzag in between. And so if we need to go back and forth on slides, that's fine. And if you will we'll just start with questions, and whoever is the appropriate answer person, we'll have them come up here. So Laura, if you want to get just started down here in the front. Tom, go ahead. Yeah.
Two questions, and I'll have a lot more, but let me start with those. The first one is this traffic study that you've developed based on the old square footage or the new square footage?
And Beth, you should probably stay close.
I will. How are you going to bounce back and forth?
We'll figure it out.
It is, so the current analysis is based on the old densities. However, the change in densities resulted in a slightly lower trip generation, which is really the foundation of all of our analysis, than previously.
Follow up that. When did you measure the trip numbers? Is there a base time that you said, okay, I'm going to measure it on these days, or how did you determine that?
We collected data. Do you know the month? November. In November.
Is that the date?
It was before Thanksgiving.
Right before Thanksgiving.
Always when schools are in session, we always check school schedules.
Do we get that date? I'm just curious because if it's holiday week, it would be completely different from another.
It's not holiday week, but Megan on my team is right here to help me.
Okay, well, that'd be great.
17th.
Because if you're using that as your base, that's something you need to measure. We're measuring sure enough to consider that. Last one was, if you come out of the proposed development and you take a left, let's say you're all going downtown, which is where most people will work. How do you propose people coming out? If 188 people are going to come out at the same time, people from Harding going from west to east are coming through, and you have a very short place from that light to the light at Harding and White Bridge. How are you going to coordinate to get all that traffic flowing out of the development through that intersection? Because right now, Harding's backed up.
Yep, absolutely. So 188 coming out is a little bit higher than it is today, but it's 3 a minute. It's 3 a minute. So it's probably 3 to 4 or 3 or 6 a cycle. It depends, how long that cycle of the signal is. But that's what good signal timing is for. And people today, I know it's challenging to make that left. Like, not only do I drive through it every day, I've sat and observed intentionally over the past couple months. But there are opportunities for that. And it's an increase. I think it's, Megan, an increase of about 30 over the course of an hour. So that's one additional car every 2 minutes.
I didn't come up with that figure, 30 over. That is ridiculous. That is not even close. Nobody's leaving the place in the morning. Like, no one is leaving. So you're going to increase it by.
Hold on. Let me just finish that.
It's magic.
Does that include retail or is that just residential?
No, that's the total site development number.
Residential and retail.
Yes.
Okay, I got more questions, but I'll pass it on. I'll pass it.
Do you want to direct? If you want to start here and then work your way back, yeah.
I guess I just read a question during the planning meeting. They kept getting mentioned that this was a T5 regional center. I guess my question, one of the main things is that T5 regional centers have to have access to 2 major roadways, but this is kind of landlocked and only has one entrance and exit onto Harding. I guess how is that capable of holding a T5 regional label if it only has access to Harding now with only one?
I'll have to get planning. I can get planning to answer that. I'm not an expert on planning policy. There is like 6 different transects, and I think this may be my only T5 in the district. But it is usually the regional centers and these designation of transects they aren't parcel by parcel. It's typically an area is designated. Like for White Bridge and Charlotte, where that intersection is, that's another regional center. I'm not remembering which tier it is off the top of my head, but that's one that I'll need to get planning. And again, on that virtual meeting with planning, because there were other council members potentially on there, it had to be kind of a moderated, trying to follow state law. It's called the Sunshine Law, but it doesn't apply to state legislators. It applies to council members, and sometimes it doesn't make it very easy to have sunshine. But I am happy to ask planning to kind of get into that a little bit more. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I have 2 others. The next is KCI. For the traffic study, the height of daily visits was to the supermarket. You said this was only studied within this area. Kroger's just shifting 1 stoplight down, so those same estimated 9,000 visitors are still supposedly going to be going to that location.
Yes, so we've done 2 studies. The first is the site-specific traffic impact study, which does look at background developments that are in process. But more specifically for your question, in the mobility study, there was an assumed grocery store on one of those sites. So those trips do relocate basically from the one site to the other. Of course, everyone is coming from different directions, so it looks a little different. Some people no longer have to drive through Woodmont and Whitebridge and Harding because the grocery store is now going to be on the other side. If you live off Bowling, you probably no longer have to drive through that intersection, versus some people now do. So yes, it is included in our analysis.
And sorry, I might just move over here. That might be easier. And so with the typically developments are not required to do traffic impact studies. That if they do the study of their own project and of known projects or approved projects, and they may not be. Thank you so much. Yes, they may not be totally coordinated and things like that. This one, I've required that they are coordinated, that the 3 projects are all taken into account and coordinated, and NDOT. So it's not just me demanding that, but NDOT is doing that as well. And so what that is going to do is it's going to give us a much better picture of all of these proposed projects, because I know the Kroger's project went to the planning department this week to start having conversations about what they want to do and their in and out and their traffic and things like that. So Laura, if you want to keep working down the aisle.
I actually have 3 different questions on different aspects of this. If it's all right, I'll just try to spool all 3 of them out and then let you feel it respectively. The first one, the simplest one, my question concerns the Greenway. My wife and I went back there and looked at that slide, some of which you showed slides of last weekend. And the part that I'm not connected, it's fairly easy to walk from where they are now. I've got to the Greenway access. But part of that is not on the footprint of your site. It goes behind the Ingram Garage, or between the Ingram Garage and the Ingram Building, which I presume is their private property. And the way you've sort of presented that is this is all going to be one continuous greenway. Are you getting an easement, or is there some kind of agreement, to that? Because that's not clear from your plan. So that's one question.
I could take that one first. Yeah, that's a good point. It's about 75 feet from this property to the Greenway trailhead, and we're in conversations with the neighboring property owners to figure out how to tie that in. But it seems very doable.
Don't you have an existing easement?
There's the existing.
Sorry. So my question was, is when they have presented this to me before, my question was, what if that Ingram property redevelops and closes off that access point? And y'all have told me that you have a permanent easement. There's a part of the reason the drive is where the light is and stays here, the existing light, and it's in the plan, is because there's an existing permanent easement from that light and behind the Ingram building, between the garage and the Ingram building. Is that correct?
That's totally correct. But that is correct. There is the permanent easement. That is our access drive here, but also there is additional land there that's not being, that would tie into the Greenway, not in any area that's being used currently.
But if I'm understanding you correctly, you're in conversations, but it's not a done deal.
It's a permanent easement.
There is a permanent easement, but the tie-in that we showed here is something that we're working through, like talking with them right now.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies my question. The second one concerns Richmond Creek. Because when we went back there last week, I hadn't realized how big that three-story parking garage is, in addition to the store that's over there, and it's right on top of the creek. It's a steep bank. I have not seen any specifics on it. So this is a real fragile ecosystem. There are endangered species on that waterway. It's in terrible shape and been degraded in some parts now. But it's hard for me to understand how you would do that much demolition work without impacting the creek. I'm not saying that's not possible, but especially for a developer that said we want to build community trust and as many people use that waterway, I would have expected to see more specific plans on how you're going to go to great pains to not get a bunch of debris in that creek. All I've frankly seen are these beautiful renderings and not something specific about how you're going to protect our creek. I don't want to make it worse, and I'm not sure how you get there.
So I'll let them answer that as well, but at our next meeting, that's why I discussed with Director Scott Potter, head of water and stormwater, asking to have a Metro representative there too, because there've been a ton of questions about the buffers and the floodway and that type of thing. And I want you to hear from Metro as well about that. But so do you want to go ahead and field that question?
You are correct. I mean, you are correct. We are going to be greatly changing what's back there. I mean, to remove those walls. Did you hear what I said at the beginning? Okay. Yeah, we will be making major changes to that. We have been in conversations with Metro Water, Corps of Engineers, the civil engineer on the project, and there are regulations in place that we will have to maintain the quality of the creek. We will not be able to just leave the debris or let it continue downstream. So there are very stringent regulations that we'd have to abide by. We also have to go through a very extensive floodway analyses to not show a no rise, which that is a very long process. That will be a part of the final SP. This is the preliminary SP. So the final SP would be what the final implementation of this would be. But the end result in using the right means of restoration along that creek, we've already been also in contact with the Harpeth River Association, Cumberland River Compact. Everyone is really excited that the creek is such bad condition right now that bringing that back is really a positive. We do not want to damage the beautiful parts of the creek. We're trying to correct those parts. But yes, it is extensive, and there's lots of the exact process, but it is possible. It's been done in many other cities, and it's just a very difficult and process. But there are regulations in place.
Well, maybe that was something that you were planning to present in more detail at the next meeting, and so I'll be anxious to see it. I just think you could go a long way toward reassuring the community if you showed them how you're going to get there with a lot of specifics about what you're going to do to protect the creek in construction progress, because so far that seems to be missing. And it's where it comes across to us like, trust us, we're fine, and we've had our leg pulled by people other than you before. We've seen what it looks like.
And it's a very good point, and I appreciate you bringing it up, and we can provide more detail what that process from here on out And we shouldn't have assumed that, just knowing that the federal regulations, protection, things that we may know, we'll make that clear on how that process.
The third question is about traffic. I have a similar concern that was raised down here, but from what I saw in the dog and pony part of the show about the cars coming in and out, it looks like you're just talking about that development when you're measuring that. And the problem is the whole corridor. A lot of us had trouble getting over here tonight because of the corridor. I appreciate what Councilmember Murphy is trying to push for is a holistic view of that. I'm not seeing a holistic view of it from what you presented. That we're going to have all of those cars that are my shop is that Kroger. All of those cars are going to migrate on that same corridor. We've got 2 new developments coming in there. I would, I work the English language. I would prefer not something to be presented as fact when on your slide it says estimate. And the final part of it is, since you said, if I heard you correctly, there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot more research on this to be done. So based on that, I would presume you would be willing to put this project on hold until all of those studies are completed and presented.
So this project can't move forward at the planning commission until Public Works has made recommendations. So they can't pass go, they can't collect $200, they can't move forward until there's those recommendations from the planning commission. So that is, that's one of those checks and balances that we do have in that process. So that won't, and one of the things that I've already discussed with the team is requiring a secondary, if this were to pass and move forward, is to require a secondary on the end, having another study done and seeing if there are other conditions that need to be improved. And again, I apologize that I'm saying, Brandy, will you do you mind passing the mic back? Oh, you did already. Okay, great. Again, I was gonna apologize that I borrowed my walker from my 100-year-old grandfather tonight. So great, you've got it.
You're doing good on this.
Thank you. So go ahead.
Yes, on your traffic generation, you projected you had 146,000 square feet of existing retail. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you were projecting a national thing. How much traffic 146,000 square feet of retail generates, correct? Not existing, but what, 40? It's a national
We actually looked at it both ways, but yes, that's.
What's the occupancy, retail occupancy in the Belle Meade Center right now?
I don't have that answer, but I do know that we have had to look at it both in the current occupancy when we counted. CVS, I believe, was already closed when we counted. I believe the Electronics Express had already replaced Office Depot, Max, they were both the same. Whatever that's called. But so we looked at it both as how many cars are actually coming in and out today on November 17th when we collected data. And then also, if we use the processes accepted by FHWA and the national DOT and the state DOT and NDOT, what would the metrics say from the ITE trip generation?
So what you put up there was y'all did an actual count?
The numbers up there today are from ITE trip generation because the CVS parcel was vacant, because there were vacancies when we counted in November.
So the center doesn't really generate as much as you would have been.
No, it does actually.
Okay.
If we,
That's
okay,
y'all did an actual traffic count generations.
yes, sir.
That was my question.
Thank you. Behind you.
Yeah.
As I look at the project from a high level, I see essentially a tripling of the square footage of the development. And I also see, coincident with that, a reduction in retail from about 190,000 square feet to 80,000 square feet. And if I look at the 80,000 square feet as a percentage of the proposed total square footage of 775,000 square feet, essentially 10% of the proposed development is now retail. So my question is the development team is proposing reconfiguring this retail development as a residential development. And I think really depriving the folks in this room of a retail establishment by removing 110,000 square feet of retail. My question to the development team is, would you consider adding more retail?
Who wants that? Somebody put it. Keep it moving.
So the question was, would we consider adding more retail? Part of this, the changes we've incorporated do just that from the prior submission. We were at 60,000 feet. Now it's at 80,000 feet, an increase of a third. So we have taken that into account in these revisions.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there's 190,000 square feet today. So you're proposing reducing that from 190,000 to 80,000.
The entirety of the center is about 200,000 feet today. But when you look at the number of storefronts, when you look at the big boxes like Kroger and the Electronic Express outlet, what we are proposing would have more than double the existing number of retail storefronts and restaurants.
So twice the number of occupants, but 60% less square footage.
That's correct.
Do you want to pass it back?
I have just a scenario about parking, traffic, and all of that. I have a retail store, and I have to get deliveries to my retail store. So I have an 18-wheeler packed loaded with my goods, and I want delivered to my retail store. How's he going to get into this retail location with one way in and one way out, and no parking?
Thank you. So the question was, how do we get loading in and out? So we have a tabletop circular drive to access for loading in and out of the building. We also have loading spaces in each of the buildings. So we have loading bays that they can back into in the two residential buildings. And then we have a connection on the loop road that goes under White Bridge that stays the same. So I think it's appropriately scaled and designed for the retail tenants that we have. There are no big box tenants on this site, so we don't anticipate any 18-wheelers coming in here.
So while we're on that, can you also talk about where the trash is going to go? Because I don't want to see dumpsters.
Yes, and I missed that point, and I'm sorry. All of the trash rooms all of the trash rooms are interior. So there's a back of a house, a back door, and all the retail tenants, they get to load their trash, and then it gets picked up and taken away. But there are no exterior trash dumpsters outside the building. That's not unusual. That's how we design all these buildings these days. It's one of the big improvements we're going to have. And one thing I wanted to touch on is, even though it's 80,000 square feet of retail, it's high use retail. There's no, the average depth of the retail tenant out there now, those buildings are average 140 deep. The Kroger's 200 foot deep. So it's the reason why we can do 80,000 and serve this neighborhood and have the flexibility here, because we don't have the big box tenants, so they don't want, there's a demand for 60 foot or 50 foot deep retail spaces.
I have a couple of questions. On the traffic, I understand where you're coming from when you say it will reduce the number of trips to this development. And the main reason it's reducing the number of trips is because you're taking away most of the retail. Now, whether it's a large store or a small store, that does not necessarily mean your small store does not necessarily mean that it's a store that will serve the community. Actually, what is the residential? What will the residential serve the community? 90% of this development as residential. It will not serve the surrounding community that has used this property for decades. And my other question is, you continually refer to this as being at the corner of two arterial roads. Where is the entrance to White Bridge Road? Right. It's White Bridge Road is how many feet above this? The only place is where it comes in to Harding, and if I understood you correctly, it's really been confusing trying to keep all these things because some of them don't make sense. Did I understand you to say you're going to close the right lane only from White Ridge Road to Harding?
No, that would not be, no.
He said that.
No.
Someone said that.
Right
I wrote
in
it down.
entrance.
No, what they're talking, I think what, so you know that entrance
Oh, you're
where you
talking
come off?
about the lane after you make the right-hand turn.
Yes.
That one lane, which makes it be 6 lanes across there or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, that curb cut is going away.
Okay.
Yes, that curb cut is going away. That's what they were
You
referring to.
say curb
Driveway. That driveway through there. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I also wanted to acknowledge that Council Lady Joyce Stiles has joined us tonight too. So, thank you. Go ahead.
I want to ask a couple of follow-ups. One thing is, are you talking about as you're coming past St. Thomas and you get to the light, I'm not going to say it's the intersection of White Ridge and Harding, where right now you can just go right without stopping. Are you talking about that right lane that's there?
No.
Okay, because that.
None of the road of that intersection, all of those intersection on and off and in and out is staying. They're talking about how you get into the parking lot. Currently, you can get into the parking lot roughly in front of the Starbucks. That is going away. The main light will still be there, but that little one-off cut in. Can you go back to the original site as is?
Yeah.
Somebody go up there and point. That is what they're talking about. That is a right only in. So like if you're coming from where I live at White Ridge and Charlotte and coming down and scooting around, I never use that anyway because I'm running to hit a curb. But that's what they're talking about. That is the curb cut. That's a right in, right out. And quite frankly, it's very close to the intersection and not the best of design to begin with. So so that is what they are talking about going away.
Right, I'd like to go back kind of to the beginning of the discussion or the presentation. And that is the whole notion of underground parking, which I think is a lovely thing. At this particular site, where the creek runs right by, where where flooded before, it's still going to be there. There's still going to be an exit right instead of going both ways back down on Harding Road. And right by there runs the creek. And I know the creek is going to be improved. I also know it's not going to be foolproof. And I'm worried that we're changing the mix, to follow up on Charlotte's point, from commercial, which serves the community, to residential, which doesn't serve the community. But I am very concerned about flooding and what happened in the downtown underground parking structures and flood, and particularly at this very site. I've got the pictures, I've got the video that shows the flooding in that underground garage, and I'm worried about, if this plan goes forward, there will be, for the first time, residents living there. So that's a huge concern. But before I quit talking, let me address another concern. There are homes right behind where a lot of that pipe is.
I'm sorry, can you address that? And we're really gonna, because I want everyone to be able to ask their questions, and we're stuck over here, so if we can condense our questions and maybe just ask one, so we can try to make a loop around the room. We are at 7:30.
Sorry, real quick. My name is Ryan Woodson. I'm with Barge Civil Engineer on the project. As far as flooding in the parking garage will be both elevated and flood-proofed per national and local standards. So we will not be able to get a permit, occupancy permit from Metro unless we meet those code requirements per local Metro water standards.
John, you have questions? Questions?
Yes, first I want to thank you, Councilwoman Murphy, for your ongoing commitment to involving the community, listening to our concerns, and not passing zoning over our objections. I want to thank you for that. You've done that consistently for several years. I also want to say that this is a very good team. I've worked with Mr. Hastings, I've worked with Hawkins, we did Greenway and all that. So, what I haven't heard from y'all, this is my question, is so as it's currently zoned, and that's all you have a right to, is to develop this as it's zoned. You can develop, I want to make sure we understand the big parameters here. We have about 200 square feet of development there now, but you can develop up to 460 thereabouts. Is that the kind of ballpark? The numbers are probably watched. So if you develop this, even at the current zoning, you've still got to do the Greenway changes, because you can't, you can leave it as is, but obviously that doesn't work with the development plans. Obviously, you're going to make changes, trying to make it walkable. I mean, those are all the bells and whistles that all development does these things. My question to you is, what are the real benefits that this community will garner if we were to agree to giving you what is now a 70% increase in density? You were asking for 100%. You've now dropped it to 70%. What do we get for enduring 70% more development in what is clearly still, it was one of the worst intersections when we did the UDO. I was in the council, and there's really been no improvements to change this intersection. And I think everybody's concern is that you're going to add in different, higher density, and we're just going to move the grocery store down. So, yeah, those of us on the east side of White Ridge Road, maybe we'll get there a little bit quicker. But those of us that are on the west side of White Ridge Road, we're now going to have to go through the intersection.
So first,
we don't really, I don't see what the benefit is to the community. That's my question. Can you articulate what?
So the benefits, I'm gonna let them handle, but let me start with zoning by right, what they have. So by right is for those of you, because I know that can be a little bit of a wonky term. It's like, if you have a single family home right now, you can have a single family home right now. It is, you would have to change your zoning if you want to have 3 homes there. So by right, they're a single family home. By right, they are zoned MUL. So they're able to do on this site whatever MUL allows for sizes and types and businesses and things like that. It does not require them to do anything in the creek, clean up the creek, to do a greenway or anything like that. Developers do often do that because it's an amenity and it makes their site better, but I do not have any ability, and Metro does not have any ability to make them do any of that. So I wanted to be clear there. By right means they can do things without those bells and whistles. Now, as for the benefits to the community, it's not my job to justify this project, and so I'm going to let them answer for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what the councilwoman lady said was accurate. There is no requirement regarding creek walks or pedestrian access or anything like that under the current zoning. These are the benefits that we envision bringing to this project that we think would make it a great neighborhood center and really add something that definitely is not required at this time.
That's it?
You didn't answer the question.
The revitalization of the creek, the additional green space, the conversion of a site that's 89% asphalt today to 60% green space. We see all those as major benefits for the area.
Benefits to the community.
putting this huge development there? What is the benefit to us that you are going to give
Those
us?
are all
Not just
public
this little
amenities.
creek,
Those are all public amenities.
Not this little like fancy little creek with all
Michael,
the beautiful
he's
pictures.
answering. Please
No, I
do
know
not
he's
interrupt
answering.
him.
So what are
Michael,
the benefits?
we are not going to interrupt.
Okay, we want to talk. And you guys
Exactly,
do
and
this
we're passing
25
around. You
minutes,
have to wait
and
for
that's
your
it.
turn.
It's not fair.
Go ahead. We'll go to the next
It's
question.
not fair.
I was 3.5 times the height from what we're allowed now benefit us. And I'm just telling you, people move cross country all the time here. And there's hundreds of people going to be moving in. And trust me, they're on 18-wheelers because those things come cross country with these 3 households on them. You will have 18-wheelers in there. And I'm confused. I heard that there's going to be all the parking's going to be underground, and then I heard it wasn't. How much blasting is there going to be? Because my house has cracks from the West Nashville blasting over there, and this is like the gentleman up here said, very sensitive area. How is that not going to impact the neighbors, the neighborhood, the wildlife that we have in this neighborhood, and the creek, the blasting?
I'll try to answer your question around blasting. One thing we're blessed with here is lots of rock, lots of limestone in our region, as you know. There absolutely will be blasting on site. There will be no way to build the project without that. So it definitely will be required. You know, the state regulates what you, as the blasting company, have to do in terms of what the policies and procedures
The
are.
blasting company's oversight is run by the people who do the blasting.
Yeah.
Trust me, they do not respond whatsoever. Or they don't respond.
Okay. I've had,
Sorry, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna take that from you. Enjoy being down here. So they do have to do a pre-blast survey, and it is kind of small because the state regulations, I won't get into all of that, are very loosey-goosey and are not as strong as I think any of us would like them to see. Part of the SP requirement is that we can require them to do a bigger blasting survey, pre-survey, but I think it sounds like y'all don't have some of that environmental information, and I will make sure that we won't have another meeting unless you could have a blasting person here
Sure.
to explain that.
Happy to.
So. But I know there is an issue with the state with that, and there is, the state oversight isn't great, so. We'll go,
Councilwoman Murphy, this question is for you. I think that everyone in this room feels that there's a level of disingenuousness in terms of looking at the traffic in isolation. We're all smart people, we know that we cannot look at it in isolation. You have said that we shouldn't worry because nothing will move forward to the planning commission without a mobility study. Will you commit in this room to not supporting the rezoning until all of the information is in about this impasse?
Okay, so the first stop is the planning commission, and they won't move it forward. I can't move anything forward at the council.
Well, will you support it? You are supporting this.
I'm not
plan
supporting this
absent
project.
of all of the information.
Right, I'm not supporting this project yet. I'm neutral on this. I want to get all the information. And so until NDOT provides that information, it can't move forward from the planning commission. And if it doesn't go through the planning commission, it can't come to the council.
Okay, so it does not have your support then.
Right.
Until all of this, how long is this impact study going to take?
I literally, when I was being wheeled into surgery two Thursdays ago, I was on the phone with the NDOT director asking for that date. She hasn't given it to me yet.
Because I
They
think
don't have that
the
info back.
concern is that this plan is going to get approved and moved forward.
It can't without NDOT.
All of that information. I heard things about taking months for this study to happen, this mobility study to happen. The horse is going to be out of the barn before all of these sort of tenuous answers are.
It can't move forward with that.
About all of these sort of, yeah, we're going to get to it, I think that is the concern. That there's a trust me factor here that everyone is asking, AJ Capital, you, don't worry, we got it. And then everything's going to go ahead without it, but we're going to get that information later after construction's already.
No, literally, the planning commission cannot consider it without the NDOT information, and it cannot go to the council without a recommendation from the planning commission. So it is literally stalled at this
at this level until the traffic information and studies are done. I mean, if this was a uniform park and I was wanting a uniform park, I still couldn't move it forward without the NDOT information recommendations.
So is it off the March 9th?
I don't know when NDOT's gonna have their information back, so I don't know when they'll be planning.
I would like to also, this young lady over here, and that is, has there been any traffic studies recently about construction? We have more construction trailers and trucks. If you were on Harding Road today, one lane was closed down. We were way down past MBA before anybody could do anything. That's just one lane and they were being by the metro. So that's a pain in the ass. Next thing is when you have construction going on in 3 different projects in this area, you gotta have dump trucks. You gotta have construction trucks. They got a way to get in and out. It's a pain in the butt as it is now with all this building going on in Nashville. Have the traffic studies going to do something miraculous with all these dump trucks and stuff to be out of the way of school children and hospitals? Yeah, let's build a bike lane down there. I think that's a great idea because it's right next to the hospital. And so somebody can just go right there in the emergency room.
I would like to address the traffic as well. The study that you did, you talked about coming out of the shopping center in the morning, like 180 cars, whatever you mentioned. Does that assume that the retail that you're proposing, the increase in retail, doesn't open until 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the morning? And that nobody's going to be visiting retail, so we're not going to have any traffic from people who don't live there?
So the question was, what are the assumptions related to the retail in the morning? I'm generalizing a little bit. We do assume that some of that retail is open, and the same assumptions when I talked about using the national standards for one of the questions earlier, the same assumptions apply to the before conditions and the after conditions. So we assume that the new development will have a coffee shop, just like there is a Starbucks there today. So some of those trips are retail, and some of those trips are residential.
Hey, thank you, my name is Doug Warren. Once again, thanks for putting this together, and I'll be brief, I promise. I know within that environment, there's been some studies of the standard, and they said intersection successful. So I don't know if it's Department of Transportation, DDOT, NDOT, but somebody says there's some metrics out there that we can achieve these metrics, we've met a standard. This intersection is successful. So against those standards, where are we today? And where will we be when this project is completed?
That question gets very complicated very quickly. You've probably heard me talk before about letter grades. Intersections have a letter grade A through F. Megan, are you pulling this up for me? I believe, Megan's going to tell me if I'm wrong, that currently the overall, I know all approaches are not the same. I'm going to say that, so I don't want to shock you too much. The morning is a level of service D today, and the afternoon is a level of service F today. It's an E today. Thank you, Megan. I understand that there are certain approaches where that delay is a level of service F for a single approach. Okay, I'm just going to try to keep this simple. We have done this study as the standalone study that is required for the SP process, which is the standalone Belle Meade Plaza study. And then we have done the larger mobility study, 2 separate studies. When we look at this site specifically, because the trip generation is not increased, this site specifically basically has the same results in the future that it has today. I know it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and in traffic analysis gets very complicated very quickly.
When you calculate the rest in, what happens?
When you calculate the rest in, one of the build years for the broader mobility study is 2027, and that is the year that a year assumed that all of this is done. Part of the HG Hill site is done, and I believe all of the site on Ridgefield is done. Megan, can you help me? Are they both level of service F? They're both level of service F. They are, can you mouth me the numbers or no? With the, I know it gets very much in the weeds, and I don't really want to encourage each of you to read the multi-hundred page traffic impact studies that are posted on the website, but they are out there.
So the next meeting's on the 25th and 26th. I'm gonna expect y'all to have a summary. I'm asking NDOT to have their recommendations by then. Again, like I said, I don't have a date on that, but I'm gonna need a one-pager summary that I can understand, that like my dog at home could understand, to make it clear. And then also a link to, I think that is the traffic study already online. I have looked through the traffic study online. I think that's where I saw it, and eyes crossed. But yes, if I can have a one, you can do a front and back. I want a one-pager explaining it in terms that I understand and my dog. All right, Zach, who's next? There we go.
I guess back to traffic. I haven't one of the great people name one of the schools around this project in this entire presentation tonight. So if you went back to your slide that showed your traffic and retail, little pink cars around there. And to your point, the 10 o'clock, retail's usually open at 10 o'clock, unless it's a coffee shop. But you've yet to even mention the schools. So there's, we have small universities and schools, and that's the private schools. We have massive public schools, and that we can't tell, you haven't even presented that. So you have MBA and St. Cecilia and Overbrook and Innsbruck, and then we go into the rest of the schools. That traffic's coming in nonstop in the morning anyway. The other thing is there any consideration to the damage that you're going to do out in temporary, if that's what you say, to Woodmont Lane, Woodmont Circle, and Post Road, and Davidson Road, and everywhere else? And I live over in the Belle Meade area right now. I work on a traffic group that is there, we're addressing it. The satellites and the navigational apps are going to read all your promotion, and they're going to run this everywhere down these lanes and circles and everything else. I have yet to hear you address that.
Not all of it. I'm going to answer the school question because the school traffic is very impactful here. And the reason that I didn't spend any time talking about it is because it's the same now as it is in the future, meaning the numbers and those patterns don't change with a particular site or in the mobility study. I would love to make some suggestions for how that school traffic operates, but that's outside the scope of what we're looking at right here. In terms of how the satellites will, I don't know if I can answer that question. Anybody want to take a stab at that? The construction and at the impact to the roads?
We have 10 minutes left and a lot of hands up. Can we keep it moving? There are 4 of y'all that presented and there's hundreds of us. So please, let's move it on.
Hello, I just wanted to push back a little bit on the idea that there's absolutely no community benefits to residential. I know my parents moved here in 1995 before I was born. They bought a $200,000 home and now it's worth $1 million. And so I think there is a lot of benefit. I know everyone in here could be my parent, if not my grandparent. And there is a lot of community benefit for those of us who, at this rate, will never be able to afford to go in Nashville. So my question for the developer is, when we're looking at like things like price point, these are 3,000 plus square foot condos and apartments. Is this intended to be affordable, or is this intended to be really high? Is someone like me ever going to be able to live here, or is it only going to be wealthy individuals who can live in this part of Nashville?
That's a good question. So between the condos and the apartments, we'll have a variety of unit sizes. As part of these revisions, we've made some tweaks to those unit mixes based on the feedback we've gotten. But this is a market rate project for both the apartments and the condos based on the area. Yeah, we're not there to that point yet on list prices or anything like that.
Come on, don't play us. What are the prices?
Michael.
No. What are the prices?
Michael, please, let him answer.
Yeah, this project will be built for a couple of years, so we don't have the prices in place.
You
And so I will also add, and I know this isn't an answer you like, this is not an answer I like, but the Metro Council did pass affordable housing incentives where if a project is seeking greater entitlements like this, they are required to have affordable housing units. The state legislature went in and preempted that. And so not only did they preempt that we cannot require those affordable housing units, the council, well, more so the planning commission cannot even consider the affordability or unaffordability, which is extremely frustrating because you're right, people like me I can only live here because I was born and raised here. So we'll go to the next question. And could we fix the strobe lights? Thank you, go ahead.
One very quick question for the audience. Could everybody who supports and feels comfortable with what they're doing? Can everybody?
Do you have a question for the development team?
I have a question for everyone here.
Let's, because we have so many people wanting questions, please, question for the development team.
The question is, if somebody in this audience feels comfortable, stand up.
All right, next question, Zach, next question.
Okay. So when I look at this picture, I see two buildings that are tandem bottom for the future, in the bottom and corner there. So my question is for our council people in the room is, if the Ingram building is the standard for height, or that or near height, you're gonna see two buildings there where you have trust and trust today on the side. And then you're gonna see plant facade height across the street. It's just too much density.
That's right. So I think, did you have a question there?
Yeah, my question is.
What happens across the street?
Would you support buildings across the street the same density that they're proposing tonight?
Well, probably fortunately for me is, I'm out of office in August, and so that won't be coming up in my term. So the planning department, like where this site has, it's the T5, this meets policy currently at the planning policy. But what is great about the planning department is even though their previous heights met the policy, planning department said, you're not going over the Ingram site. So typically what happens is when they start making that type of judgment call at the policy level, staff level, they will extend that across. I can't predict the future. I can't predict what will come there, neither can the planning department, of course, but I suspect that there will be some high water marks and levels, and the elevation will definitely be taken into account. But again, I don't want to make promises beyond August. Your question.
You used SP, and it makes it really interesting proposal. My question is, why don't we use the SP and go to pretty much what is allowed zoning now? So what about $1,000, which would be $500 per feet, which would again double what we've got now, and it's be very effective in helping.
So the question about the base zoning, I think that some of that is the development call of what they are applying for. Some of that is what I will tolerate and allow and get comfortable supporting. And I think we still have more information before I'm ready to support or not.
I guess my question is, why can't this same project be used in a 400,000 square feet as opposed to, etc., use MUL? I understand that, but you could still use the SP to do it for less square footage. Or you could keep it.
So part of it is what they apply for. And I can't dictate what, just like if you want to add on a garage to your house or paint your house pink and purple, unless you're an overlay, I can't control that. So some of that is a decision in the market and in paper that I can't answer to for them. Zach, who's next?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about the pedestrian and potentially bike access for folks to live nearby who actually want the Greenway?
Yes, and I'm going to go to that slide. It's going to be pretty all the way at the other end of the slide deck. But so pedestrian and bike access was the question, and I'm going to be clicking all the way through. I will bring images on the 25th, but we are proposing to have the signalized intersection, that's the site access, be a protected intersection. That is an intersection that has enhanced, oh, this is a lot of clicks, an intersection that has enhanced crossings with safety, with opportunities for a separate space for bikes and for peds to cross. So particularly if you're in one of the apartments to the south, you'll be able to cross and access the Greenway. There will be enhanced sidewalk widths that will be per or beyond the MCSP. The MCSP Major Collector Street Plan is what that is, recommends calls for bike lanes on Harding. I'm not recommending bike lanes on Harding, bike lanes to nowhere. So that extra space we'll be able to do something else with. It'll either be more green space or wider sidewalks. Did I answer your question? I feel like I did.
So specifically on like White Bridge and specifically on White Bridge and Woodlawn and West End, is that going to be easier to cross as a pedestrian?
It should be easier to cross as a pedestrian, in part because the removal of split phase will mean that those pedestrians can go at the same time, which will make it more efficient and reduce the wait time. We will be restriping all of the pedestrian accommodations at that intersection, updating ramp, just basic fixes, any ramps that are not ADA applicable or don't meet ADA standards today will be replaced. So it will see an upgrade, certainly.
And that Major and Collector Street Plan, it's for all of Nashville. There are maps online, but I do have a link to it in the email I sent out today and in the previous ones. And I'm just keeping those links at the bottom, so whenever you get it, you can see it. Go ahead, Ray. Hey, Ray.
Hi, how are you, Kathleen? So I just did a little bit of quick math. 950 parking spots and 388 units of living, right? And so if you assume on average everybody has 1.5 cars, so that's going to leave about 400 spots for the retail. Now, I live on the other side of 31st off West End, where Bricktops is. Coming here today should have taken me 5 minutes, took me 40 minutes. I'm 3 miles away. I'm not walking. I'm driving.
Ray, did you come on Charlotte? Did you come West End or did you come?
I came West End.
Okay, because I wanted to mention that I've also got NDOT looking at Charlotte too, because that would be another way for you to come from there.
Yeah, but I'm.
Yeah, because Charlotte's
Charlotte,
ridiculous.
I gotta go all the way down to Charlotte. I'm right up West End. I'm down the block from Bricktops. So, thanks to the other project that KCI did the traffic report work on Murphy Road, because that's also a nightmare still. Thank you. And so I sat through that like 4 times, and then I got past that. Now we're gonna have the construction for St. Thomas, where the Matco is, where the restaurant there, the picnic thing is. All of this is gonna add to the traffic, so I don't believe your traffic study, ma'am, sorry. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to park my car to do any of the shopping in this area. And the other thing is, we're gonna have the Kroger in another spot. This is all going to be a big mess. You are making Atlanta right here in Nashville.
George Jarrett, real quick question. It's my understanding that you said that the project, the mobility project, was looking at the 3 developments along West End, Harding Road. What about the developments over in Lions Head and the Church Shopping Center that are currently under development? Are they being considered in the mobility study?
Which ones in Lions Head? We don't have any current ones in Lions Head.
What about
Where Wendy's was. Yes. Oh, and Chewy's. So Chewy's is done, and the development that was proposed there, I believe my quote in the paper was they haven't listened to my recommendations or planning's recommendations, and they pulled back their application. And then as for where the Steinmart was,
they also were not gaining traction and they withdrew their application as well. So currently they're, other than the Wendy's being swapped out to a Cane's, which I don't know why it's taking so long, that is, currently there's nothing else in the application pool right now. Again, I'm only speaking to what I have been proposed to or at the planning commission. What other ones? I'm sorry. Those were the other, were those the only ones you're talking about?
Well, just anything across over the line city area, to me, once this gets developed and it develops a precedent for any future development.
Right.
And Lions Head is 36 acres.
And I also have Lions Head, the planning department staff, their like, well, this is like a T5, that is, their policy over there is way too high. And I've asked them to look at that and start the process of changing the policy over there to not allow the apartments that were proposed before. So Susanna?
Yeah, Kathleen, can you share with the community what the plan is for presenting to the planning commission? What are there dates that it's going to be? Has the date been identified for going in front of the planning commission?
Yeah, so currently they are on the March 9th agenda, which is also driven by the development team applying. But if they do not have all the recommendations of like the fire marshal, stormwater, NDOT, all of the departments don't have their comments in, then they won't be able to go before the planning commission. So like if NDOT doesn't get their recommendations in, or stormwater doesn't recommend it, or something like that, then they won't go before them on the 9th.
Just a comment, is that's fast timeline, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why there's a sense in the community that this is moving quickly, and it's hard as community members to digest a lot of information and have time to process it so that we can have time to comment about it.
I will say one thing about keeping them, not pushing them further out, is the benefit that I like to do is the stick and carrot of they got to get their information in. They can't drag their feet. We're not going to have a meeting now and a meeting in 3 months. I have a project on Charlotte that presented like in the middle of COVID, and they just came back to me. It was for a grocery store on Charlotte, and they said, okay, well, we have the community meeting, so we're going to go to planning commission now. And I was like, you haven't presented in over a year and a half. So the good thing, while it does keep us on our toes as constituents and neighbors, it also keeps their feet to the fire to get the project details done and not have lag times and hope that y'all just forget or go away. It kind of keeps us all involved. So it does seem like it is fast. We'll see if they make that 9th meeting. It might not have it done by then. So I'll continue to communicate that out as it happens though.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'd like to know how many residential condos are something proposed and the square footage for those condos.
So the question was about square footage, condo breakdown.
Yeah, so that's part of the feedback we incorporated here. As we reduce the overall number of residential units, we heard the community express an interest in more owned condo units than a greater proportion of those. So it's 101 condos in the 2,400 square foot average, kind of similar to what the market is right now.
Well, you had a document on your website that said 120 residential condos in the last week, and this was an increase from 90 to 3,000 square feet.
Hold on, they're fixing it. Hold on.
You had a document on your website that said 120 residential condos, and that was up from 90. And the 90 were marked as 3,000 square feet, but this 120 is going to be less square feet.
101 now, but that we reduced the average square footage, same amount of overall condo square footage, but a little bit smaller units to incorporate a few additional units.
So how many parking spaces would be devoted to the 120 condos?
Depending on the layout, we're still working through that, but 1.5 to 2 per condo.
And so on those parking, this is outside the urban zoning overlay. Part of our district is inside that, part of it is outside that. It's basically the old city limits. The council, I opposed this, but the council has done away with parking requirements for developments like this within the urban zoning overlay. Could y'all be careful about the lights back there, please?
They want us to go.
So, we're good. So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So the council did away with kind of those maximums and minimums and things like that. This is outside the UZO, so it is required to meet the metro code. It is required to have parking, and then I can require more parking above that as well. That's the benefit of an SP over the MUL as well, is that I can change with those numbers. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the traffic coming out, in and out, the residents, the rental and the condo owners, do you plan on every unit having one car, or do you plan on 2 cars?
So the equation isn't 1 car or 2 cars per, it's based on the number of units and the expected trips in and out that isn't.
I'm just asking a basic question. Was your number based on each unit being 1 car or each unit being 2 cars?
Yeah, there's not a simple answer to that question, the way
It sounds simple to me.
So I guess let me rephrase. So do you have your breakdown of units? Because you need to know your unit count to know the car count from the way we look at it. I mean, I know you base it off of square footage, but is there a way that you can calculate that based off of bedrooms?
So what trip generation is either a rate or an equation per unit? Do you know what it is for this, for the AM peak hour? Do you want to answer it from a parking perspective?
So from a parking perspective, it's similar to the.
I'm not talking about parking.
Oh,
I'm talking
well.
about traffic going in and out. Because if it's 1 per unit, that's 1 number. If it's mom and dad, hubby and wife, that kind of thing, it's 2 cars. So that's double the number that you're using. And kids.
I am, because ITE trip generation uses rates that are not always linear equations. So it's an equation, which makes it indirect.
So it sounds like the math that we would commonly use as common people are apples, and the way that professional standards go nationally are oranges. So it's hard to, or lemons, it's hard to compare the two. But maybe we can work on that, Beth, and you can find some sort of way to equate that.
We can simplify it.
Yeah.
We'll simplify it.
Again, I want a one feature. Zach?
Okay, I would like to know on your traffic study, I'm reading directly from your traffic study. It says, therefore, our traffic study does not need to be included in the combined study with the other developments along Harding Hub. Can you please explain that?
So originally, we scoped this project with NDOT prior to the request for the mobility study. And there was already discussion at that point about a combined study with the HG Hill property and the property to the south, which is where everyone has been discussing Kroger going. So those 2 developments were originally combined. However, because this site showed a net negative trip generation, as I've discussed with you, NDOT did not require this analysis to be combined with that analysis. However, after we began having conversations with Kathleen and started to hear from the community, that request was made for this site to be incorporated into a broader mobility study, which is the second study I discussed.
Yes, will you commit to holding a public meeting on this mobility study that you keep talking about that no one has seen? And will you make the study available to us before the meeting? Because it's very complicated.
Oh, yeah. So, it's if I can get it first, I should be able to get that first as soon as NDOT has it. As soon as NDOT approves me to have it and make it public, when it's final, we can put that out. But we do have those dates. I just don't know when I am a little, hands are tied by when NDOT was gonna finalize that.
But so I hope that they will be at the next meetings. If they're not, then I'll just schedule another meeting solely devoted to that. I'm waiting on NDOT and we'll make sure I know that Councilman Durfel walked out, but Councilor Henderson here is still here, and she also will help me get NDOT, little feet to the fire there, because I think that, and Councilor Henderson is also on our Traffic and Parking Commission, so that gives her a little bit more power in NDOT as well. So, but there will be a meeting on traffic solely when we get
Before
started.
planning commission.
Oh, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
I have one other quick question. If you would go to your mitigation along Hardy and White Bridge slide, I'm confused because I feel like all these changes that you're talking about in traffic signals and split phase, we do not need any type of development proposal for that to happen. You could have done this years ago, and this intersection has been horrible for years. I don't understand why you're presenting this like all of a sudden this is gonna make it better. You could have done this years ago.
So, part of that is, and unfortunately, Metro for many years has been more reactive than proactive. And that's why, one of the reasons I ran for council is because we don't need to just be reacting to when traffic is bad. We need to be proactively making it better. And so this is what comes out of this traffic study and the recommendations that are made, if this project does not move forward, I'm gonna be asking NDOT to do them anyway. The signalization is happening anyway. We have a transit plan, Councilor Henderson, you're talking, when did we pass that transportation plan? The beginning of this term? Early in the term?
The revised changes.
Yes.
Maybe about a year and sometime.
So like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we passed a new transportation plan, and NDOT is systematically working through that and working through the corridors and throughout the county to implement things like this. But what's convenient is a development is coming, so let's make them pay for it. So the money that would pay for this, we can put towards a sidewalk or some traffic calming and things like that. So it is kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul at times. And so if NDOT knows that a project is coming and they can get a developer to pay for it, they'll do it. But either way, these are things that are identified. NDOT knows them, and I expect them to put them on their slate to get done.
Well, with all due respect, I don't imagine that a split phase change is something that NDOT or TDOT couldn't do today or couldn't have done a year ago. I don't think that requires any funds from a developer. I understand the sidewalks, but sidewalks are not going to make our road traffic better.
That was an example about sidewalks. I don't know what it costs, but it's things as simple as striping, that costs minimal money, but like when the bridge at Hillwood was out because the state was rebuilding that bridge that kind of next to the Kroger curves up, I had NDOT restripe coming from the Target to the intersection of Harding and White Bridge and Woodmont. We restriped it so you could get into that turn lane earlier, faster, and it moved traffic faster. When we identify those things, they'll do them. We just have to turn them into Hub Nashville. Some of them they may not be aware that it's a problem. And that's why NDOT came out and said, show me, tell me your problems. And so sometimes it is something that they hadn't thought of or it hadn't been brought to their attention. So if you see something, it's totally a say something. Put it in Hub Nashville and request it. And that's just hub.nashville.gov, and that's the best way to get them going. So next question.
Yes, I was hoping that the next meeting could be scheduled in a place where more than 300 people could attend. Is that possible? I know NBA has an event center that's open to like 1,000 people and they'd be willing to host.
So some of that is the council office works with the development team to coordinate and schedule those. And quite frankly, I've been out for a week or two, so I've relied on the council office and the development team to do that. The development team also pays for all of these costs. And so that's why the location hasn't been finalized yet and announced, and that's why it took me till last week to finalize and announce this one, and because we had already set this date before I found out I was having surgery, and so that's why this location wasn't announced until last week, was to make sure that I could physically be here and we could be in person.
One more question, you say you're restoring the creek, yet you're leaving the concrete pillars. from the Kroger platform and you're leaving part of the Kroger platform, why are you not taking out those concrete pillars and taking everything man-made out of the creek?
We are taking a lot, like we're up over 80% of the structures out of it. We saw it as a benefit to have a elevated park above to create access point. Sorry, this thing is so. Yeah, apparently just pick it up. Yes, we are removing about a little over 80% of the structure out of it. We saw it as a benefit to create a destination park that provided interesting vantage points to the creek. So it was meant to be a destination so that it wasn't a dead end to the Greenway, that there was to the end of that. So we looked at it as a community amenity, and it was a unique opportunity to do that. But most of the structure is being removed.
What about the concrete pillars?
All of the concrete pillars would be removed. Where the discussion we talked about earlier about the idea of disrupting, we've looked at whether we keep them in place to where you cut them off so that you don't have to pull them out of the bedrock and create more disturbance. But there is no intention to leave the columns in place unless they are for the platform park in that small portion. But it's about, I would say, 80% of the structure is being removed in what you see today on the screen.
You got the golden ticket.
Is it on?
Yes.
My question is specifically about your segue into the Greenway. My question is about the segue into the Greenway behind your development. How many people are going to be in the condos? And don't give me the smallest figure.
So the people in condos and Greenway access.
Yeah, there's about 100. There's 101 condos, so I think you could anticipate 1.5, 2 people.
Two. I would say 2.
Okay.
Because some will have children. Okay. So I walk the Greenway every single day. So you're going to be adding 200 potential people that are going to be on the Greenway as well. So we need to consider the increased density in the open area that the people already in the neighborhood are making use of. That's all I have to say about that.
Understood.
It wouldn't be my first time to require development to do some off-site improvements for the Greenway. The development that Ray was talking about on Murphy Road, we got them to do the stormwater, the draining gutter for the stormwater for the 440 Greenway, because the hotel would be using it as an amenity. So I expect that will be coming out in the future if they want to gain any bit of support from me. Zach?
So Councilman Murphy, can you please require a better plan so we have an understanding of how to remove trash from their retail development, and also how we've got an architect who's saying there are not going to be 18-wheelers delivered in the center core of retail. I think he needs to open his eyes to Nashville and look at the retailers. Mr. Hastings behind him will also say it happens all the time. They cannot control the 18-wheelers in their development, or they need to work on that, and they need to have a better plan of how that retail works. The next question.
Wait, let me. So I can require them not to have 18-wheelers, but that's something I need to hear from them more about their loading and unloading. And yes, Phil will have more information about trash next. Go ahead.
Next question is on the height. Is it 151 feet to the peak, at the top of the buildings? Is that what you're proposing, or is it to the top floor?
Rooftop.
You'll see, it's very top.
To the top.
To the top one, yep. There wouldn't be anything above that 151.
So 151 is the, and are y'all talking, but what about, does that include like your elevator, what are they called? The little hat things, antennas, everything, 151. 151, okay.
In NBA, you indicated that you were in favor of it. Now, although you said that you weren't sure.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
No, I have never said that I'm in favor of this project.
Several options around, you mentioned it today. Going further, they can currently do 460,000 square feet with no zoning change from the 200,000 that they've got. Is that correct?
I believe those are the numbers that were on there. Yes.
So why would they not just do it under the current approved rather than they want to build more residential units? I guess it's because the cost of land is so high. That's the only reason that the financial number is there.
Do you want me to respond to that? I can't speak to their numbers or plans, so.
Yeah, we're asking for the SP in order to build additional density here
Right.
to have a larger mixed use community.
You can't do that big. You have to reduce your number.
We're asking for the SP for this additional density.
But if you didn't get it, would you do something? Or would you end it?
We're focused on this plan and working through this process.
No, but you may not get it. ROI would be that's my question. If you don't get the zone, is it done?
We're focused on this SP and this plan. We don't own the land currently, so that's all we're.
So this is a pretty easy question. If you don't have the zoning now, so if you don't get the zoning,
Yeah, the rezoning is a key part of our plan. Yes.
okay. So if you don't get it, you're done.
So we are at 8:22. So I'm sorry, did you have, I didn't know if that was your question. Do you have another, was that it? So that was your question? Oh, that was your question.
That's
Okay.
all I wanted.
Okay, all right. So,
I have a question. I've been waiting.
and it needs to be a question because we're at
No,
8:22 and we need to get
okay.
going.
Hi, this on? Okay, look, first off, it's not really quick, no questions. So don't pretend that you have our interests at heart, that you're so happy that we made these suggestions to you, that you're so appreciative and you're so excited about it, because this isn't serving us, okay? We're not happy about this. So please don't pretend that you really care about what we say. You're only doing this, only making these diminishments because you have to. And Kathleen, I would love it if you had an opinion on this. If you weren't neutral, you represent me. You represent these people. You don't represent them. You represent our community and my neighborhood, and I voted for you to support us. So please represent us, have some passion. You don't buy your shit, all right? That's it.
And so for the past 7 years, I have not taken positions on projects until they have their final plan in front of us. And I weigh the opinions. I have a lot of people who are sending me emails in support. I have a lot of people who are sending emails in opposition. And I think it's most important to get all of the facts gathered and all of the information together and weigh it appropriately from there. And so that is why I have not voiced an opinion on this yet, because I want to make sure that we get all the facts and make the best decision based on policy and what is best for our community. And so Zach, do we have any more?
It's not politics.
All right. So thank you all for coming. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did you have one more question? Yes. Let's do that and then we'll close out. Oh, we have two more.
Are
Okay.
you going to be doing environmental studies on this regarding the blasting and how that's going to affect? Is there any, there's, like you said, there's species that are endangered, et cetera?
You're probably the best person to answer this question regarding the creek itself. Is that the question? What would happen with blasting and would it, yeah. Everything?
To the Greenway, to everything.
I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We would coordinate with local and state authorities. I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but there are several permits that we'd have to be required to obtain both on a local level and a state level in order to even touch the creek. So in doing those permits, one of them is called an Aquatic Resources Alteration Permit, an ARAP. You would be required to look at endangered species within a certain radius of the project site. So yes, that would be considered on this.
Pollution.
Blasting, destruction to wildlife, etc. And strain on our sewers that we're gonna have to pay for that are already antiquated.
So some of that is required, so when the infrastructure piece of that is a requirement under, the different departments, and Stormwater will be able to answer that at the next meeting when I have them, because I've asked them to specifically kind of talk through what all they do, and Stormwater handles a lot of that environmental piece too, and so I'll have them cover all of that, but it's things like they have to go ahead and pay for stormwater, for water pipes improving and things like that. Now, electrical lines, internet lines, that's separate because that's not a regulated utility through us.
Public forum on this where we have other than this, which is as far as, we can complain to the developers, but I don't know what she's saying and he's saying and he's saying, and there's no public forum. I didn't even hear about this. I lived here for 20 years. I didn't even hear about this. This is like, I went to the last meeting and none of my neighbors have heard about this. There isn't any contact, and I don't think the developers want any contact.
So for the community meetings, I send them out through my email list, and I require them to send out postcards to the same area that they were required by the Metro Code for rezoning, and then I share it via social media.
It's very close. If you look.
Oh, I know it's close, but that's why I put it out in my email. It's put out through the media. It's put out on Metro website, and I try to share it on all the social media websites.
But not everyone you're not even in my district. We have to travel
And I know some other council members, Councilwoman Henderson, Councilman Druffel have helped share that out as well. I think Councilman Foley has done that as well. We don't have another necessarily mechanism to share out these meeting types other than if you're on our email list or you're on the Metro list and things like that. But I'm sorry, we have one more question.
I can add something. We have the website too with the email.
I think they have been putting questions and answers on the website, is that correct?
We have FAQ.
So they do have an FAQ in there. So they are continuing to add questions and answers to your website?
No, I don't mean if you go through what you want. I mean, I want to know how if 50 people are asking this and going back to public forum, you can see the interaction. Because people are bringing up stuff I didn't think about and vice versa. So it's all, it's just a big secret, all these meetings are passed. I didn't know about any of them. Are you inviting environmental organizations in this area?
They have been having meetings with them as well. Yeah, one
I'm
question.
executive chair of the Sierra Club of Middle Tennessee, and no one has contacted us. Why?
Can you review the height?
Well, I'm sorry. I do know that there are Sierra Club members and leadership on my newsletter list. That is an organization that I've been talking with about my tree legislation. And I know that because they are personal friends of mine, I know that there's Sierra Club members and leadership on my list. So. Exactly.
Can you review the storage? The building A was 9. What's building B?
The stories.
Stories.
10.
10.
C.
13.
13.
And D.
13.
Okay. I can tell you that this community does not want high-rise buildings. We want you to elevate our neighborhood, not our buildings. We would love modernized retail. So my question to you is at the next presentation, you have beautiful renderings of the retail, none of the high-rise buildings, and I think the picture says 1,000 words. I would like to see a rendering of all 4 high-rise buildings against the lower retail and next to the Ingram building as a point of view so that your community can see what that would look like. And number 2, I ask that you listen to your community. This is not what we want. We definitely want redevelopment, but not to this scale.
Let me answer your question about the renderings. The only reason we didn't have updated renderings of the buildings in the background, right, which were not included in those retails, we hadn't finished them yet because this decision to reduce the building heights as significantly as we did caused us to redesign all of those. We will have them on the 25th, that meeting for you, per your request.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight again. So the next meeting is the 25th and the 26th at 3 o'clock. Location will be announced. And I have been asking and adding people as you come in to, I add you to my newsletter list. And so that will be going out in advance. Thank you all for coming. Wait just a minute. And let me get my old
Get
lady.
behind me.